Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Hartcher, your joyful journey mentor. And today we're going to discuss the three C's. Yes, you're probably wondering what the three C's are. They are contrast, comparison, connection. I'm going to explain the relevance of the three C's shortly, but this has come about during my journaling, my writing of this book that I'm writing called Feeling Broken, A Path to Self-Love and Healing. That's the subtitle of the book. So this podcast came about, the foundations of it was to help me write a book. And so I'm on this journey of researching, writing, and sharing with you whilst I'm in the process of writing the book. So the three C's came up to me when I was writing this morning. Yes, this is the first episode dropping in 2026. So really, second episode. My challenge this week was to actually get the episode ready for my weekly timing, which is Saturday. Each episode drops, and really appreciate you listening in each week and embracing the content that I'm sharing. So what I'm writing, or what I'm sharing with you today, yes, I am writing about it as well, is we perceive life through contrast. So we're constantly perceiving, anything we perceive is through a contrast. For example, if we're in a completely black room, we can't see. If we're in a completely white room, we cannot see. How we see is the contrast. And this is why when it's not great contrast, you have trouble reading the writing, for example. So when I put on these blue light blocking glasses at night, I the contrast isn't there, the clarity is not there, and I actually stop reading. I can't read. And so we cannot perceive without contrast. And so we're constantly in this understanding of the world through contrast. And that leads me to the next one is comparison. So contrast then leads us to compare in order to relate. Okay, so we perceiving everything through contrast, and then we are taking that information and trying to relate it to something that you understand or I understand, right? Because that's how we see the world. And so we perceive it, and then we seek to interpret what we're perceiving. And that is through comparison, through your past experiences, through your understanding of the world. And so we're constantly doing this compare and contrast in order to better relate to the person in front of you that you're chatting to, or better relate to the world you're observing, in order to ultimately connect. So that is the three C's: is we perceive life through contrast, we relate through comparison, and this purpose of all of this is ultimately connection, right? So it's contrast, comparison, connection. But the compare and contrast is guiding you towards connection. And it's connection towards self, connection towards others, and connection towards everything. Now, there's obviously things that get in the way of observing the world as it is. And that's our filter, it's our lens on how we see the world. And that is shaped by our past experiences, by people that have been influencers, people that have challenged us, or we could say today we call them bullies. It's the experiences that we've had during our childhood, during our adolescence, that really shapes the lens of how we see the world. And this lens is heavily shaped by the emotions associated with experiences. And so when we have strong views of the world, when we've had these emotions setting up this lens or establishing the lens on how we see the world. So the challenge with what I'm writing about, or the book, is all about this shifting the way in which you see yourself, others, and the world, so that you see everything and everyone as one. You see the connectedness. And so that's the whole journey that I'm taking the reader on, is they may pick up the book or I guess who it's appealing to are those that are feeling in pieces, right? Or feel that their world is broken or they feel shattered. These are some of the feelings they may get, connected to. My world is in pieces. I feel like I'm in pieces. I'm in parts. And what they're wanting is the integration, to feel one, to feel whole. And that's ultimately an expression of self-love, is when you love everything, every piece about you. You start to feel more connection with others when you can relate to them through yourself, but you now love yourself, and so therefore you love them. Where we disconnect is where we see something in others that we haven't loved in ourselves, that we've disowned, and therefore we look to blame them, or we look to, they make us feel unsettled. But it's a reminder that there's something within us that hasn't been loved when we see this thing in someone else that we don't like, right? And so the book is all about helping relationships, relationship with self, relationship with others, and relationship with everything. And ultimately, the goal of the book is to help you feel more complete, feel more whole, feeling a sense of oneness, or starting the journey to bringing yourself together, back together, so you feel whole. And how this, I guess, what happens with this filter that makes us feel so disconnected is that we've judged past experiences. We've said this experience is bad, this experience is good, and that creates a disconnect where every experience is whole and complete. It's got good and bad integrated together. What happens is we look at one side of the event or the experience or the person and judge that side and say, this is them, or this is the experience. In actual fact, it's everything. And this is what drives us to disconnection, is when we see the world as shattered, when we see people as broken, when in actual fact, it's a reflection of ourselves on how we see the world. And so this is the journey that I'm really going to dig deep into this year, 2026, and in aim to complete the book in 2026. That's the goal. Hold me accountable to completing the book in 2026. But I'm taking you along the journey with the podcast. And so get back to what causes disconnection. It's judgment, it's labels. So it's identifying with labels, it's judging something as good or bad or evil, or what's the opposite to evil? Heavenly? I'm not sure. Godly? I'm not sure. But anyway, so it's not seeing that everything is all of it. Everything is everything. That's an interesting concept. But there's wholeness to everything. That everything's complete. It's just when we judge it, we split it, we separate it, and we don't see the wholeness. And so the book is a journey to you putting together the pieces to understand how to better feel at one in your body. And then when you're at one in your body, then you're at one with everyone and everything. So that's the goal of the book, is to help you start that journey to bring the integration of pieces back together so that you feel whole, you feel loved, you feel complete. There's nothing missing. So I'll start to articulate this over the coming weeks in more detail. I just wanted to share an outline because it's 2026 and I'm deep into the writing exercise. I'm starting to pull together the thinking that I've been doing over the last couple of years, or since launching the podcast. Actually, the podcast is just over a year old. So we've done the anniversary. I've recorded over 60 episodes or somewhere around that, and getting closer to completing this book. Would love your feedback on anything that I'm not clearly explaining, so that I can better articulate that in the book and I can better articulate that on the podcast. Because ultimately, I want this to be relatable. Because if it's relatable, then you're going to understand it and then put the pieces together. Whereas if it's unrelatable, then that creates a disconnection. Anything that we don't relate to causes disconnection. And we can only relate through comparing and contrasting, which can cause disconnection if we judge it, right? So the greater the contrast, the greater the difference, the greater the gap, the greater we perceive something is missing, and we judge it. It's incomplete. It's incomplete awareness. So anything that you have around a black and white opinion that this is it, most likely you've got a lopsided view of it. Um, when when judgment drive emotion, because it's lopsided thinking, it creates a polarization. It creates an unsettledness. It creates emotion. And so the more we can look for what we're not seeing, look for the wholeness in the situation, the more the emotions start to settle and we see the clarity. I just recently read a Buddhism teaching, and it was explaining, the monk was explaining to the student that when you look at boiling water, there's no clarity. You cannot see the bottom. It is angry. And that's what it's like when you judge or when you label something. You create an emotion, invoke an emotion within you, and you lose the clarity. You can't see the wholeness. It's only when the emotions settle, and that's the boiling water cooling down, that you can see the bottom. We see the bottom when our emotions, or we see the wholeness when our emotions are settled. So, this is why more reflection, more mindfulness is really helpful in this process of seeing the wholeness, is because whilst we're agitated, whilst we're unsettled, we can't see the wholeness. There's no clarity. We have this sense connection with one side that we're unable to break because of the emotional bond. So we need to calm down that emotion, break those emotional bonds, and that will happen when you start to look at what you're not seeing, the other side. And I've explained this on previous episodes, that if you think something's all good, then that's lopsided thinking, and you're blinded to the downside. You're blinded to the not so good side. And that's when you'll make silly financial decisions. That's when you'll make silly relationship decisions, when you think something is all good. And same with the contrast. When you think something is all bad, you will just stack up all the negatives and you won't see the bigger picture, the wholeness, because you haven't looked at the other side, because you've judged it. And once you've made a judgment, that's polarized. You've polarized yourself. You've invoked a strong emotion behind it, strong associations around that emotion, and it's locked in. It's black and white. And so we cannot grow when we're stuck with all this black and white thinking, when we're stuck with all these labels, when we're stuck with all this judgment. We cannot get out from a helicopter view and look down and see the bigger picture when we've labeled and created all these layers around the onion. And some of it can be protective factors where you're just not ready to go there and you're not ready to see the whole picture. That is fine, but that work will need to happen at some stage. And it's best not to develop so much protection that you cannot, for the life of you, ever see the wholeness in the situation. That's ideally not the way to go about it. And again, everyone does this at their own pace, and some may never see the wholeness in any situation, or in some situations experienced. Simply, it's hard to explain. I mean, it's something they choose not to, and that's them. I guess this is helping those that want to fully heal or want to feel complete love, or go on that journey. It's not for those that are stuck with that thought that there's no answers, there's no solutions. And when that happens, you actually label yourself, or you start creating a label around you as the victim. And it does create support. and around you, and people try to lift you out of the victim status. However, that can actually feed the victim status as well, and it can actually inhibit growth. So again, it needs to be a balance between support and no support, or support and letting go. So again, this is the entanglement between the opposites. And we need to see that there's always that entanglement between opposites, and that they're whole and complete as a helicopter view looking at the situation is. So I hope this has helped. It's been me articulating, I guess, who the book's for, what journey you're going to go on, and what I hope to give you by the end of it, in terms of at least getting you started to pulling the pieces together and starting to feel whole, starting to feel complete, starting to feel more content. And when life's like that, you experience more joy, you experience more happiness, and you'll find more fulfillment within life. So please share any feedback that you have on this episode, and where I'm taking the book, and whether I'm explaining it in terms that you find relatable, or how you could better, or you just share what you're not understanding, and then I can look at ways to find that more relatable through sharing experiences or stories that can help you find that relatedness. So, and continue to share this with others that you believe that will benefit going on this journey, in terms of pulling the pieces that they perceive that are not there, or either so disconnected from, together, so that everyone feels, I guess, at one with themselves, and at one with everyone, and at one with everything. That's the goal, is unity. So enjoy the journey with me this year. Look forward to completing the book with you, going along the journey with me, and continue to follow the Joyful Mate podcast and share it with others who you think could benefit. Until next time, continue to experience more fulfillment, joy, and happiness.